We gather as a house of stories, many stories, woven fine. As we listen to the tales of those who have gone before, the way in front of us becomes more clear. As we make space for voices long silenced, all of us become more free. As we hear the accounts of those who made it through the dark, courage reigns on each and every one. These are our stories, friends. I need yours as you need mine. It's how we become whole. Yes, we gather as a house of many stories. Come, listen to us once again.
Well, that's all right. Lark, that was so beautiful, as always. Thank you for giving us such wonderful music here. Such a joy. Good morning and welcome to Minnesota Valley UU Fellowship. My name is Jody Gray. I serve this fellowship as a member of the Board of Trustees, and I sing in the choir under Nicole's wonderful, inspirational, enthusiastic directorship. It's so fabulous. In today's service, we will be reflecting on the many stories that shape our lives. What is your story today? Are you happy and optimistic? Are you tired and in need of rest? Do you need an infusion of inspiration? Do you need help or comfort? Maybe it's complicated. Maybe you need some space to just set it all aside for an hour. Whatever your story is, we hope that the space we create together can offer you what you need. In the spirit of welcome and community, we invite you to greet one another in a way that's comfortable for you.
Good morning. My name's Laura. I'm the minister. Good morning, Greg. We've also heard some shout outs for Nicole and Lark this morning. Did Lark disappear on me again? And Lark, wherever she is. Yeah, are fabulous. They bring fabulous musical inspiration. We've got Richard back on tech this morning. Tom is helping me with words, and Jody was up here giving you a welcome today. And I'm not sure what color team is on hospitality, but they have brought mochi. I saw mochi downstairs. And my apologies, we're out of creamer. But it'll be here tomorrow. So we all come together to work and worship and build community here on these lands in this place that are also the spiritual, ancestral, and contemporary homelands of the Dakota people. We want to especially welcome any visitors that we have today. There is a visitor form downstairs on the table. If you're here in person, you can fill that out, and that will get you on our email list to keep you updated about what's going on here. There's also a welcome packet that has a newsletter in there and some other things that will help you get acquainted to the fellowship. If you're watching online, hello, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening for folks on YouTube, and hello to those on Zoom. You can find a link for that in the chat or comments. A couple of announcements. The auction committee had put out a survey. Those of you that are getting the Friday email, you can find it in there. They would love to have your feedback on the auction to make that an ever improving event. Not to say that it needs improvement. We had a fabulous auction this year that was very successful, but there are always things that we can look to making it suit everybody's needs a little bit better. I want to remind you that the annual meeting for members is next Sunday, and that will be following the service. There is child care that will be available for that, so if you're a member and you have children and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to come because I have kids, please come, because we need the members to vote on important things, and your kids can be downstairs doing fun activities with Maria. Well, your kids will be here anyway, because it's actually Children, Youth, and Families Sundays next week as well. We'll be doing some child dedications and having a lively service before the meeting. Question Box Sunday is 2 Sundays from now. There's a box out in the lobby. If you have questions that you want me to answer, or maybe Nicole to answer, or members of the board to answer, you can put them in there, and we will do our best to answer your deep and profound questions, or just questions about what our favorite song is, what our favorite style of music is, whatever it is that you want to get to know us, or get to know this life that we share better. We'll do our best. Finally, I just want to let you know, to have on your radar, for the first Sunday in June, is that? The second is our, that'll be Flower Communion, and also it will be our annual picnic. Following that will be at, what's the name of that park? Huh? Highland Hills. You can find all the information in the newsletter. And Flower Communion, there'll be more information about that in the June Unison, because I realize we have new members who don't even know what that is. So we'll explain a little closer to it. We continue on this morning, though, with our chalice lighting, and I'll invite you all to recite the words that you should see up behind me or on your screen. We light this chalice for mothers and mothering, to celebrate those who have taken on the task of nurturing a young one, baby, child, or youth into adulthood, to celebrate those who have nourished the light of truth and compassion in growing minds and hearts, to celebrate those who have committed time, money, and energy to the growth of others in this world. We light this chalice to celebrate and hold dear this flame of love. And our opening hymn on this beautiful spring day is Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. That's number 29 in the gray hymnal. Each week we set aside a few minutes to lift up the joys and sorrows of those who have gathered here and online. If you're on Zoom, you can write joy or sorrow, gratitude, concern in the chat, and we'll share it here. If you're here in person, you can raise your hand and someone will come around with you. I have something to share. First, though, as you're thinking about what you want to share, I am just so thankful for the bounty of the season and people who share that with me. And this is because a friend of mine yesterday gave me a whole bag of rhubarb. And Jeannie, our admin, hooked me up with her local forager, and I have 2 pounds of morels to take home as well. Right? Which may show up, I might show up in that special dinner that some of you bought tickets for coming up next month. And on that wave of thinking, I also just want to lift up, and I know this is the season where I start lifting her up a lot, and she was here, and I don't know where she disappeared to, but Becky McPeak, who does our gardens outside, is working hard, moving things and pruning things and planting things and making everything absolutely gorgeous out there. And it's such a beautiful day today, so if you have a chance when you leave, take a slow meander around to see what's growing, and then, you know, as the weeks progress, continue that meandering to see what is new and what's blossoming. It's a lovely way to begin or end your time here whenever you come. What else do we have to share today?
Brothers and sisters, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Wouldn't be human beings without moms. Just to remind us. The gift of eyesight is within reach, brothers and sisters. Thanks to this wonderful, wonderful fellowship and wonderful community around Bloomington, this is the check that will enable me to see better. So I'm just as happy as a jaybird in the first day of spring because I get the gift of eyesight. And this is the most excited I felt about eyesight since I got my first contact lens when I turned 18. So thank you. I'm so grateful. Hallelujah.
I have one to share. Yamini asked me to share. She's not able to be here today. On the 22nd, she fell at work and had a severe concussion. She's experiencing post-concussive syndrome. We're looking for a neurologist. If any of you know or are a good neurologist, please let me know. She'll probably be back next weekend.
Hi, Alexander Barrett here. I had surgery a couple weeks ago. Some people have been asking me for an update. It went really well. My recovery is going really smoothly. I've had some great loved ones taking care of me. So, yeah, really happy about that.
I'm Jody Gray, and for those of you who know our son Anders, he turns 18 tomorrow. Nice. So that's a joy. A little bit of a, whatever. And fingers crossed, and with a lot of help from a lot of people, including David Olson, he may turn in his paperwork today, hours before he turns 18 and ages out, for his Eagle Project, to earn his Eagle Award in Scouts. So send good thoughts for that to happen. It's a lot of work.
Sarah Collins. Those of you who were on Zoom with me last week know I was in North Carolina celebrating my brother, Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Collins' retirement after 20 years of service to the Marines. And that's not bad for a guy who 21 years ago flunked out of boot camp. All jokes aside, that actually had a really profound impact on me because, needless to say, the next year, my brother pulled a button from his bootstraps and persevered and passed with flying colors and has served our country well for 20 years. So he has taught me a lot, and it's always a blessing when you have a sibling that teaches you things. And then on another note, when he was giving his speech and it was my turn to be recognized as a family member, he said I was his first friend. Nice. Thank you.
This is Kai. I just wanted to lift up that today is our last adult OWL meeting. The last of 8, and I wanted to just offer gratitude to everyone who came and participated, because it can be a very vulnerable place to be and very vulnerable topics to talk about. And also I wanted to thank Eve Bergman for being my co-facilitator. It's been a joy working with her and working with all of the people in the group. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mimi Law, and I went to this wonderful concert the other night, and we got to sing with them. So they sang these words to us, and we got to, as an audience, to sing it back. And the name of the song is Take What You Need. So as we're singing, they sang to us, take a moment, take a breath, take time, take care, take heart, take hope, take a step, take a change, take courage, take charge, take a stand, take pride, take joy, take pause, take a moment, take a breath, take what you need, take what you need, take what you need.
Hi, Andrea Anderson here. I have 2 joys. My beautiful daughter Megan, who's 18, wanted to come visit the fellowship today. And the second joy is that I brought chocolate croissants for after the service, so everybody is welcome to stay and socialize.
That is a legit sharing of joy. Endorse that.
I have a sorrow in my heart today that is for my in-laws, my mother-in-law, who is gravely ill. Sorry. And she's going to enjoy that chocolate croissant. So thank you so much for bringing that. Thank you.
Last year on my birthday, I was having eye surgery and moving. So this year, I enjoyed this fabulous spring. I went to the Arboretum, I went to the Art Museum, and it was so much better. So I'm very appreciative of how things have improved for me.
I just wanted to say, I was in Winona and took my sister-in-law, who I adore, for surgery. And it really went well, and I'm back again.
Are there any on Zoom, Richard? One?
From Matthew Schneider, I'm thankful for my wonderful partner, Sarah Collins. I couldn't imagine raising our son without her. And from Myra Bassar, wishing all the moms of any kind a happy Mother's Day and holding all those who have lost their moms in my heart. Yay, Eve.
Hi, Antonio.
I love you, Antonio, Matthew.
We lift up all of these joys and sorrows and those that remain in the sanctuary of our hearts. Will you all please join in our sung response? our centering space today, I have a prayer that's off, that I adapted a little bit from Reverend John Lou Johnston. Will you please join me in the posture of meditation or prayer? On this day of honoring mothers, we acknowledge the complexity of the relationships in our lives, especially family relations, the most powerful influences. In witness of that power and whatever feelings are awakened in us, let us bring our hearts and mind into focus on the holy and the good. Let us be together in the spirit of prayer. We call on Sophia, goddess of wisdom, Shakti, the mother goddess, Kali, the goddess of change and empowerment, Mary, mother of God, Gaia, mother goddess of all. Thank you for all of the mothers who have nurtured our lives and our souls. Thank you for all who have helped us grow into who we are. Whatever their role, grandmother or stepmother or foster parent, or even father or uncle or teacher, we recognize and treasure the nurturers in our own lives, past and present, whoever they may be. Comfort those in pain who carry the pain of a parent or child who has died. Loss may feel acute again today as others celebrate. May their grief be muted by the memory of love and the consolation of others. May we especially hold in our hearts those mothers who have lost children and those children who have lost mothers. We call on the goddess Irene of peace and spring to guide us to brighter days filled with less violence and war and oppression. We pray today, too, for those with difficult relationships with their mothers or with parents or with their children. May they find ways to appreciate what has been good and grow from what has not. May goodness be born from any struggles that exist. May those who are estranged find companionship and know that they are loved. We commit ourselves to the community of the generations, whether we raise children or whether we raise children or others have raised them, or whether we seek other ways to shape the future. May we honor our struggle to offer to all of those coming after us love, justice, wisdom, and guidance in all the ways we are able to give. May the blessings we have been given in previous generations be transmitted again to the new generations. In the name of the feminine divine, we pray. Amen. Friends, I went to the doctor earlier this week for a checkup, and my family practitioner general doctor is in West St. Paul at the Ehlinger Clinic. And while I was walking to the waiting area, I noticed there was a table there, and it said, if you need some food to take home, let us know. And the sign on there was our shared partner this month, was from Every Meal. So here last week I told you they work with schools and whatnot to make sure that kids and folks have meals outside of that school lunch program on evenings and weekends and summers, and here it was in a clinic. And I was just amazed and felt proud that we had them as a sharing partner this month. And before we turn it over to the ushers to take the offering, I just want to remind you that half of our offering every month goes to our sharing partner, so we invite your generosity for that. And I also want to remind you that up here is the QR code, and that's also in your order of service. You just take a picture or click on it on your phone camera, and it will take you to the donation site. And what I do is, years ago, I just set it up on an automatic thing because I'm busy on Sunday mornings, and I don't put money in the basket because I'm usually busy. But you can do that too. Maybe you forget to bring cash, so you can just set it up for an automatic monthly contribution to that, and that helps those partners, and it helps us a little bit too. Will the ushers please come forward to take the offering?
Thank you, Lark. That's one of my favorite songs. And it's one that my mother-in-law would sing. My lovely mother-in-law, who's now gone. Good morning. I'm Tom Ehlinger. For some reason, when I look out here, I want to laugh. And I was just thinking that when talking about story, I'm looking out at a library. Every person here is an ongoing book. And what I'd like to do today is share a few of my personal thoughts about children, parents, and their stories. There's a quote from the philosopher Sam Keen that stuck with me ever since I was a young man. Keen said, "Human beings are not biological creatures. Human beings are biomythic animals. We're controlled largely by the stories we tell. Not biological, biomythic." That statement profoundly affected how I view the world and its people. Human beings are meaning makers, and we make meaning through our stories. We weave our life experiences into stories that help us know who we are, where we've been, and where we're going. We live within our personal stories, and our stories meet the stories of others. How we handle those meetings is crucial, especially when our stories meet those of our children. When my wife Ann and I got married, neither of us planned to have children. It's not that we had anything in particular against kids. They just weren't part of the story we had for ourselves. But after 6 years, we decided to have a child. Both of us wanted a girl. Anne, because she'd grown up with 2 brothers, loved being a woman, and wanted to raise a little girl. Me, because I'd grown up in Green Bay during the Vince Lombardi football era, which left me with deep reservations about bringing a boy into a world where the story of masculinity was, don't be weak, don't cry, don't feel pain, and if it ain't broke, play on it. So we researched things that you can do if you want a girl. But after that, we knew about that part already. These were the add-on things, little things around. We did them, and we got our wish. A spirited, dark-haired, dark-eyed child with an intense stare. Then, 4 years later, we decided to have another child. Anne wasn't confident she knew how to raise a boy. I was still concerned with how growing up male in this culture could be painful and damaging. But we let nature take its course this time and got a lovely, gentle boy with golden curls. Once the kids arrived, their stories went in directions we had not anticipated. Our little girl preferred pants and overalls to dresses, played with tool sets, toy cars, trains, swords and shields, and had an abiding passion to be a jockey. Our play often involved wrestling or pushing forehead to forehead till one of us, usually me, gave up. They were always looking for new challenges and discoveries until 25 years later, their story took them to the discovery that their true gender was masculine, and they began to transition while in medical school. Our little boy had a finely tuned emotional sensitivity. He seemed to know when I'd had a bad day at work because on those days, he would run up and hug me as I came through the door. His insights into simple things were often startling. One day, we were waiting in the car for a train to pass, and he said, "I don't like trains." I asked him why, and he said, "Because they're loud and merciless." He took dance lessons and danced competitively through grade school and into junior high. He became a drummer, and one of his girlfriends once complained that he seemed to know what she was feeling before she did. He chose to become a psychologist. Now, Anne and I didn't buy into the conventional ideas of gender. But as I watched our children's stories unfold, I was surprised to find that there were still remnants of those old ideas lurking around in my story. As I watched our children, I found my own story changing. One child took a path that led them to a new name and a transformed body. That led me to see how the conventional story of gender constricts, distorts, and diminishes the beauty and possibility in the world. The other child opened up my story by showing it is possible for a young man to make his way through life in this culture with both his masculinity and his essential kindness intact. When my children's stories intersect with mine, the challenge for me is not so much letting go of the story as it is acknowledging and welcoming the changes to my own story. All of our stories change over time, and living with ever-changing stories can be stressful and disorienting. Is there anything we can hold on to when our stories and the stories of those we love change? The poet William Stafford gives some advice in his poem, The Way It Is. This is the poem. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of that thread. That thread runs through every person's story. That thread is the deep, essential, immutable truth of that person. It may be hard to see, but it's there. If you pay attention to their changing story with affection, openness, acceptance, love, and wonder, it will reveal itself. If we hold on to that thread as we live through the changes of our stories and the stories of those we love, we'll find that while change may bring loss and grief, it can also bring beauty and joy. Thank you.
I wanted to do one more gratitude that I forgot to share earlier, and that's, you might have noticed there's a new rocking chair out here in the lobby, and that was a gift from Karen Colton. A few weeks ago, there was a visiting family here, and they had a baby who was not real happy about having to sit through a service. And after the service, I thought, oh boy, it would be nice if we had a rocking chair for parents of babies when they're here. And so Maria and I put an ask for that in the Friday email, and that happened. So we're grateful for that, and just a reminder to check your Friday emails, because sometimes there's an ask for a one-time thing that we think of that we need, or a one-time ask for help on something. So, and thank you, Karen, for that gift. So our lives are made up not of facts or milestones, but stories. And the stories behind those stories, and all these stories that intersect to help form our stories. And those stories are handed down sometimes. So I'm going to share a story about that. A mother, I've shared this one before. A mother was showing her son how to make this handed down family recipe for a holiday ham. And after placing the aromatics in the roasting pan and massaging the ham with their secret rub, the mother cut off the ends of the ham before placing it in the roasting pan and continuing on. And the son looked puzzled, and he says, "Mom, why did you cut off the ends of the ham?" And the mom said, "Well, I don't know, but that's just how my mom did it. So why don't you go ask her?" This is a big family gathering. So the son walked out to Grandma and asked her, "Why, Grandma, did we cut off the ends of the ham in the recipe?" And Grandma said, you know, I don't know, that's just how Pop showed me, and so that's how it's always been done. So the son went to Pop, great-grandfather, who's 97 years old, also probably sitting in a rocking chair, to see if he could solve the mystery. Pop, he said, why do we cut off the ends of the ham before we put it in the pan? And Pop said, well, it was the only way that I could get it to fit in the pan that I had. It's always a good story. So sometimes the reasons behind the stories that we carry, they don't make sense anymore, right? And they're not relevant. The stories that we carry might need to be adapted to the larger pans that we have available to us or to our current context. Now, the stories that we carry can also be heavily, and they are heavily influenced by our culture. Our American culture feeds a story of rugged individualism and material success. But other cultures around the world project stories centered on family, loyalty, and honor. Those cultural stories, whatever they are, they have great influence over how we want our own stories to go, for good or for bad. Growing up female in this culture, the story I was fed that success for me was not necessarily a career, but marriage and a house with a white picket fence and 2.5 children, maybe 3 at the most, right? Other girls in my childhood loved playing house, and they had lots of baby dolls. Now, as a child, I never imagined myself growing up and wanting to get married or having kids. It just didn't seem like that was going to be part of my story. And I preferred playing with Star Wars action figures and playing superheroes on the front lawn, you know, with the towel fastened to your t-shirt as a cape. I didn't care for playing house. And the stories we were fed, they were also heavily influenced by the media. This story kept getting influenced by the media. Dick and Jane books, the first books I ever read, you know, and the Berenstain Bears, and the TV show Happy Days, which was so popular in the 70s, I can't even tell you how popular it was. But it was all that nuclear family, and that was what we were supposed to want. Media is one of the most powerful tools that shapes what we think about our stories and how we ought to be. And when we are young, we are especially malleable to the influence of these media stories and what they try to tell us. And we trust them as truth, right? Because we think anything being told to us when we're young is truth, or anything we witness is truth. So here's a story about my son, Opus. He was 5. He was sitting in the living room playing with his 5-year-old friend, Alex, while I sat on the couch. We were watching MTV music videos. I was chatting with Alex's mom, Angie. And a promo for a show that would be on later that day came on in between videos. Kurt Loder, I'm dating myself here, the MTV, right? MTV in the 80s, early 90s. Kurt Loder invited us, he always had a serious, he was the serious MTV guy. You know, tune in at 5 p.m. for a MTV special report on sex in the 90s. Opus put his Batman figure down for a minute and said, hey, can we watch that show later? And I said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And of course he asked why, and I said, well, I don't think you're old enough. And besides, I said, or besides, Angie said, she's like, besides, you guys don't even know what sex is. This challenged the boys because they thought they knew. And so they began this whispering conference with one another. And then they turned to us in agreement and shouted with the most confidence they could muster in unison, We said, all right, what is sex? And they said, Madonna. It's a true story. And I said, well, you're not far off. But remember, we were going to go to the park later when the show's on, and they decided that the park was a better idea. Now, the boys' story of what sex was obviously heavily influenced by images that they had seen in the media. But that story changed as they went on. It was only a few months later that Opus asked me if sex had something to do with babies. And then we started having other conversations about sex outside of just Madonna. And I want to say that that's one of the brilliant reasons that we facilitate OWL here, which Kai brought up earlier. So OWL, for those of you that don't know, is Our Whole Lives. That's what OWL stands for. It's a sexuality, gender, and relationship education course that's meant to be a helpful tool for folks of all ages to understand facts and stories about sexuality, gender, and relationships in order that they're better equipped to have healthy stories of their own. And that program, I'm just going to promo it here, even though it's almost over for one age group. The program was developed by the Unitarian Universalist Association in partnership with the United Church of Christ. And it is a direct contrast to stories that many other faith communities offer in terms of stories about sex and intimacy. Because in many other traditions, or in traditional families, the story might be when a man and a woman love each other very much, ... And those are the confines of those stories in many of those traditions and in our culture. And many of us grew up with that story. I grew up with that story. And where did it lead us, right? Because there are confines to that story. When a man and a woman love each other, if that's the story of sex, when a man and a woman love each other very much, ... What are the confines of that story? Gender, love, right? I mean, there's lots of confines to this story that imply that that's how sex is. So again, I want to up that OWL program for offering pathways instead of one. Lots of pathways. This year we're finishing up for adults, but next year we're focusing on 4th and 5th graders. So if you have kids that age, please get them enrolled. It's a wonderful program. And tell your friends that have kids that age too. It's a great program that we offer outside of our own community. And in that program, there's space for individual stories and questions and curiosity to be affirmed. And that is what is a huge thing about stories. Being affirmed, having your story affirmed, that's huge. This is one of the most important things that we can do to dismantle forms of oppression, whether that's racism or sexism, transphobia, ableism, homophobia, on and on. All of these forms of oppression are upheld when we engage in the dangerous practice of upholding a dominant story or a single story. Now, as a child, I never imagined I would grow up and have someone to love who loved me back. And let that sink in, and I've done this in therapy. Worked on this before, because it's heavy, right? As a kid, I imagined myself alone because there weren't any other stories. There was the fairy tale wedding with the 2.5 children, and there was the story of being a lonely woman who dresses in mousy colors who has a lot of cats, and that was, right? And that was it. I didn't see a lot of in between. And when I was 16, I did one of the bravest things I could ever do in spite of those stories that were being fed to me. In spite of all of that story that was bearing down on me, I did the bravest thing. I kissed a girl. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did like it. And just in that instance, it was like Dorothy landing in Oz, and everything went from black and white to full-blown color, and people were singing, and it was glorious. And my story changed. Suddenly, there was a story in front of me that might be told differently than being alone, wearing mousy colors, having cats. Not that there's anything wrong with cats. And then, after that happened, I heard others who had similar stories of women loving women, and they were happy. And then happiness became part of my story. And because my story was affirmed by these folks, you know. And then I found the queer community and more stories, and it was such a powerful force of affirmations, a powerful force for young LGBTQ folks when they find their community and their stories are affirmed. Now, since then, my story has been affirmed by my family, by my government. I am grateful to live in Minnesota, and we know how this story is going in other states. My story is now affirmed a lot by the media with queer representation on TV and films and advertisement and in children's books. And I want to name also a big story changer for me and for my generation. And that was, this date should be like etched somewhere for something. But on April 30th, 1997, Ellen DeGeneres publicly came out as gay on her ABC sitcom. And this made her character, Ellen Morgan, the first gay or lesbian lead character on a U.S. network television show. And I sat there and I watched her tell her part of the story, this part of her story, to the whole world. And I knew it was going to change mine, and it did. And those of you that are a bit younger that didn't have that moment, I'm just letting you know, you're benefiting on every moment that came after that, because it was a huge shift that happened then, because she was brave enough to tell her story. The stories we are told feed our own, and they can feed them in healthy and empowering ways, or they can feed them in ways that are oppressive, that have the ability to stunt the development of our own story. And this is why it's so important that we don't let a single story dominate over the unending richness of stories that we actually are. We hold as many stories as there are cells in our bodies, as there are stars in the sky. And we can bask in the unique beauty of them, and we can learn from the harm caused by them. And we can expand our understanding of our own story and change the influence of some of the big cultural stories for the better when we are loving and open and with intentional curiosity and reverence come to one another and say, "Tell me a story about yourself." Once upon a time, or maybe twice, I told my story, and then I listened to yours, and it changed the way I knew my own, and it changed the way I knew you. Then it changed what the world knew. And it wasn't about living happily ever after, though that is not a bad goal. But it was about being seen and heard. It was about weaving together a larger story that could hold us all in a place of belonging. And it was not the end. It was just the beginning. Blessed be. Amen. I love that Madonna story. I bring it up to all his new girlfriends. Our final hymn today is Mother, I Feel You. That's 1070 in the teal hymnal. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heart beat. Will you all please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice? We extinguish this flame these we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We close this morning with these words adapted from Victoria Weinstein. Stardust, birther of us all, grant us life-giving ways, strength for birthing, and a nurturing spirit, that we may all take attentive care of our world, our communities, and those precious beings entrusted to us by biology, by myth, by story or destiny, by friendship, fellowship, or fate. Blessed be, and amen.